Hey, this is Darren. I've been working with yarn for over 20 years, and over that time, I've learned quite a bit and picked up a lot of tricks. And now with the help of my friends from Joann's, I'm going to be able to share some of that knowledge with you. Okay, I think we have everything we need. Let's go home and make stuff.
Welcome everybody to Crochet 103 on this lovely afternoon. Darren is your teacher there on screen. He's going to be the one guiding us through how to learn all the skills we need to make that beautiful zigzaggy cowl he's showing off. My name is Claire. I'll be hanging out in the chat with you, answering any questions you have there or passing them on to Darren so he can demonstrate on screen for us. A few things to cover. If you haven't received the handout, I'll be posting the link for that in the chat so you can download it as needed. This class is also being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it back once that's posted on the Lion Brand YouTube channel, and that will be posted in about 24 to 48 hours after this class is finished. And just to let you know, there is a slight delay between what we're actually doing and what you're seeing on YouTube. So we'll go back and cover any questions that may pop up once we've moved on. And now that all of that is out of the way, we'll let Darren get started.
All right, welcome to class. Today is Crochet 103, and we're going to learn how to make increases, which will be adding stitches to your work, or decreases, which is subtracting stitches from your work. And when you do that, you can create different patterns and textures. So that's what creates this chevron pattern in this cowl. The cowl, it remains rectangular as you're making it, even though you're doing increases and decreases, because you're not really changing your stitch count. But once you learn how to do the increases and decreases, you'll be able to make items that are shaped in all different ways. It comes in handy if you're going to learn how to do lace, or if you want to make amigurumis, the little kind of stuffed toys. You'll need to know how to do increases and decreases, so you can take this information and apply it to a lot of different types of projects. So there's a lot to learn, and we've got a lot to cover. So let's jump right in and go ahead and change the view to the view of my hands. So we'll go ahead and get started. So a little bit about the yarn that we're going to be working with today. For the project, for the cowl, the pattern is calling for Lion Brand Heartland yarn, and in the color Sequoia and Dry to Tortoise, and that's what we have right here. Very, very nice, very nice. And you'll have some left over for other projects. We'll look more about that later. For teaching and demonstrating, I really like to use this Hometown yarn, and it's very thick, and it's a nice smooth yarn. So it shows up great on camera for students to see what I'm doing. I found this one is a good choice for being on camera. And today I'm going to be using this hook from Lion Brand. It's an N13 9mm, which two ways of saying the same thing. And if you look on the back of your ball of yarn, it will tell you, it'll recommend a needle or hook size. And this one is actually recommending an N13 or a 9mm. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to use the one it's calling for. This color, it's a real pretty color. It's called I have the wrong label on it. It's not red. This one's a green one. I'm not sure what the color name for that one is, but maybe Claire knows. Maybe Claire will tell us. But what I'm going to be working with in class today is this gray, which shows up great on camera. And this is Cincinnati or Chicago gray. I need to study my colors, right? So Chicago gray, and it comes, this yarn, both of these yarns actually come in a lot of really great colors, really great color choice. And they're both available on joanns.com and lionbrand.com. So any questions about the yarn choices or the hook selection or be ready to just get going.
The green is called Green Bay. So
Green Bay. Thank you,
appropriate
Claire. I
color
got
name there.
the wrong label on it. So, okay, so the main part of class today is going to be teaching how to make increases and decreases. And then we're going to do a few other little things as well. So this is I think I chained 10, or I'm sorry, I'm working with 10 stitches, and it's just single crochet. So if you want to work along, or if you want to just watch, you could do like a chain 11, and then do 10 single crochets across, or you could even do like a chain 12 and do 10 half doubles across, whatever you'd rather work with. So I'm going to just do a single crochet just like normal, just to kind of show you what that looks like. So just a regular single crochet, and that's just a normal one. Do one more. And now I'm going to add one stitch. So I'm going to take one stitch. I'm going to take this stitch right here, the next one, and I'm going to turn it into 2 stitches. So I'm going to increase my stitch count. So I'm going to do a single crochet to enter. So all I'm doing is just a regular single crochet, just like normal, but I'm going to go in the same stitch again and do another single crochet. So I did 2 single crochets in one stitch, and you can kind of see that right there. So let me do that again so you can see for sure. So I'm going to go in that stitch right there, do a regular single crochet, and that's where I was. And I'm going to go back in that same hole, that same stitch, and do another single crochet. So now I've increased by 2, but that stitch was now increased by 1, but a total of 2 increases. And you can kind of look at it. When you look at it, you can kind of see there are 2 stitches coming out of it. And it does kind of make the hole a little bigger, but by the time you finish your work, it'll kind of soften back out a little bit. Any questions about increasing with single crochet?
Is there a limit to how many increases you could fit in one stitch?
Oh, I'm sure there is. I guess, you could jam as many in there as you possibly can. I'm not going to tell you, let me see, I do 3, do 4, 5. I'm doing 5 and there's still room. I bet you could do a lot. There's no real limit until physics take place and like there's only physically enough room. So once you run out of room, I guess you're done. But there's no like rule against like you can only do 4 or you can only do 3. Like that's not a thing. You can do how many ever, if you're designing it, how many you want, or if how many the designer has decided. Anything else? Pretty straightforward. You just want to make sure you're going in the same stitch twice. Okay. So you can see, because I've been adding all these stitches, my piece that I'm working on is no longer kind of rectangular shapes. Now it's forcing it to be shaped in this kind of a curve. It has to make room for the stitches, and that's kind of what forces it into that curve shape. And that's what will give our work different shape and different dimension if you are adding and subtracting. Okay. So if there are no questions about that, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the decreases. And the decreases are a little bit more involved.
One question.
Okay.
You showed the increases in single crochet. Is it the same technique for like half double or double or treble?
Yeah, it's going to be exactly the same. I was going to review each one of those as I do the increases and decreases for each stitch, but it's exactly the same. If you're going to do a half double, you just do 2 half double in the same stitch. Go in the same stitch. It's going to be the same for all of them, but I'll kind of review them as I go. Yeah. So half double, double, triple, whatever you're doing, You're just doing 2 stitches in the same stitch. Okay. Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay. All right. So for doing a decrease, you insert your hook in the next. So a decrease, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but sometimes I get this question. We're going to reduce by 1 stitch. So we're going to lose 1 stitch. We're going to take away 1 stitch. So what's going to happen is the next 2 stitches on my chain or on my work, the next 2 stitches I'm going to turn into 1 stitch. So decreasing by 1. So you insert the hook just like normal, do a yarn over, bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook. Insert your hook into the next one, yarn over, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull it through all. And then it decreases by 1. So enter the stitch, yarn over, bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook. Enter the stitch, yarn over, bring up another loop into the next stitch, bring up another loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and then bring it through all 3. And I've taken 2 stitches and turned them into 1 stitch. Okay, do one more, and then we'll pause for questions. So enter the stitch just like normal, bring up a loop, and then we're going to pause here for just 1 second. And then we're going to go right to the next stitch, the very next one, bring up a loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, and then bring it through all 3. And then I've reduced by 1. And then I just have 1 stitch left on my practice. So I'm just going to do a single crochet in that one. And we'll go back and do another row. Any questions? You want to see it all again, or what are we thinking?
You've got a lovely little wavy swatch there now.
Yeah, so you can see where I increased, it forces it this way because we have to make room for these stitches. And when I did my decreases, it's forcing it this way because there's not enough, there's too much. The stitches are becoming smaller, so they're pulling it together. And that's kind of what creates that wave, and that's what you're going to be doing when you make the cowl. So kind of pretty simple. Once you start working on it, you'll be able to look at it and see how simple it actually is. But it does take a little bit of practice. Any particular spot where we have questions, or do we want to move on to half double? Maybe we've got this. How do we feel, Claire?
We do have a question. Should the increase and decrease be done in the same row?
The increases and decreases can be done in the same row. It depends on what you're making and what the designer has established. So especially in this cowl that we're going to be making, you're going to be doing them in the same row. And that's what creates like I did these all in the same row. That's what creates the kind of the curving shapes. And you can do 2, 3, 4, 5 decreases or increases right in a row, or 10 or whatever, or you can just do 1, or you can do every other stitch. It doesn't matter. Whatever the pattern is telling you, whatever, if you're designing it yourself, whatever you feel like you want to do. Okay, anything else?
I think we're ready to see the next stitch.
Ready to see half double? Okay, so for half double, we chain 2 to create that side height. And so with a half double, you start with a yarn over. Okay, yarn over, and I'm going to go in that same stitch. So yarn over, enter the stitch, yarn over, bring it through all through, yarn over, enter the same stitch, yarn over. Yarn over, bring it through all. And you can see it does kind of create a little larger hole, but that it kind of softens and goes away as you're working. And you're just doing, once you get a little bit more practice, you'll be able to read your work. You'll be able to look at it right there and see there are 2 stitches coming out of 1 stitch. And you'll be able to look at your work and see that. And as you're doing these, as you're practicing, it's a good idea to stop every so often and just look at how it's shaping up on your work, so that way you can learn what exactly they do look like. Okay. So yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over. So you're doing a complete half double, and then you're doing another complete half double in the exact same one. Okay, how do we feel about that? Pretty easy? Pretty good? So if we're going to do half double crochet 2 together, so we start off with a yarn over, as always with half double, insert the hook into the next stitch, and bring up a loop, and you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull it through 2, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch because we're going to be decreasing. Yarn over and bring up a loop. You should have 4. Wait a second. I'm sorry, I lost my place in my stitch. Let me start over. Sometimes it's trickier than it sounds. So yarn over, bring up a loop, bring it through 2. Yarn over, insert your hook.
It is a lot of loops to keep track of.
I know, I've lost count in what I'm doing. So I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, insert the hook into the next one, yarn over, through all. The problem is I've written out all my notes and I'm trying to read it as I go so I don't say it wrong, and then I lost my place in the notes and now I'm saying it wrong. Because I admitted this to Claire earlier, when I'm actually working on my projects, my personal projects, I don't always follow the rules exactly. And I'm very concerned that I'm going to teach it the wrong way, and I'm messing myself up from trying to not teach it the wrong way. I am teaching it the wrong way. So let's give it one more try. So we're going to yarn over, enter the next stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now I have 3. Yarn over, insert it into the next stitch. So we're going to the next stitch, yarn over. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then bring it through all. And I'll show that to you again because I probably thoroughly confused everybody. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, and bring up a loop. And it's important to count your loops to make sure you're not losing track like I did earlier. So 1, 2, 3, yarn over, insert your hook into the next. So if you can't really see the next one, sometimes if you feel for it, so insert, yarn over, and bring up a loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I have 5, so I know I'm right. Yarn over and bring it through all. You can see it kind of makes, it does look a little different in texture. And if you do a bunch of them together like this, then you're going to see it. But if you just do one, like in every other stitch or every third stitch or something, depending on the pattern, it really kind of disappears. So let me do it one more time just so that I can clear up any confusion I caused earlier. Yarn over, enter your stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, enter the next stitch, bring up a loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then yarn over and bring it through all. I'm just going to do just a standard half double. And they're actually not hard to do. They're actually pretty easy to do. And if you practice them and take your time, you can get it down just right. So sometimes I don't like to follow the rules and I kind of do them my own way. And of course, when I'm teaching, I want to make sure I'm teaching it just so. So any questions about that? Because I know I kind of messed it up at the beginning.
I would say a good rule of thumb to remember for crochet decreases is that you're going to stop before the last step of the stitch and then go into your next one. And so like with half double, like you end with the 3 loops on your hook. And to finish that stitch, you would yarn over, pull through all 3, but you're going to stop short and then go to the next stitch.
Yeah, I was mixing it up with the double. Because at a double, what I wanted to do was bring it through 2 and then yarn over and do like a double crochet. But so yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop. I have 1, 2, 3, yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yarn over, bring it through all 5. And I'm going to chain 2 for my side. And I did kind of the reverse. I did like increases and then decreases, and it's kind of making it back to kind of being it's less wavy now. So, okay, so we probably have questions about that. Did I thoroughly confuse everybody, or do we want to see it again? What are we doing? How do we feel? So yarn over.
Give it a minute in case everybody's typing.
3 on your hook. Yarn over. Enter the next stitch. Bring it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then pull it through. The crochet police probably would not like me telling people that they can like not do it exactly right. Like sometimes I don't exactly follow the rules, but live your life accordingly. If you're a rule follower, then you're probably better off in the long run, I would think. So now I'm just doing a couple of increases right in a row so that I don't run out of stitches on my swatch. So I'm going to just do some increases. And for increases, remember, all you do is do 2 stitches in the same stitch. And then 1 more decrease just for practice. So yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bring it through. Yarn over, I'm going to do an increase. All right, how are we doing?
I think we're doing all right.
Okay, we ready to see double?
Let's go for it.
Let me finish this row. Hopefully I can do a better job with double than I did with half double. Okay, so with double, I'm going to chain 2, turn my work. Okay. So double starts with the yarn over. So I'll do a few increases. So do double crochet. And you just do 2 double crochet in each stitch. Well, in the stitch if you're going to do an increase. So the next stitch is right here. So I'm going to do 2. And they might have you do this the whole way across the row. They might have you do 2 in every stitch if you're increasing something really fast. And what that'll do usually is make it kind of like a ruffle. It'll make it like a fluted or ruffly edge if you continue that. So you might have to do that like on the edge of a flower or something sometime. So, oops, go through, bring up a loop. Oh, I forgot I have to do a double. Okay. But if you ever find yourself like if you're talking or not paying attention and you don't know where you are in the stitch, then just take it out and reapproach. So if you get lost in the stitch, then you don't want to like have some kind of a weird stitch. Don't be afraid to go ahead and back out of that stitch. So you can see when I did all these increases right in a row, how it's forcing it to kind of be shaped like that. And if I want to try to make this lay flat, it's going to have to be a ruffle. It's going to have to be a kind of like a ruffly edge if I want to make it lay flat. So that's what you can do for like different shaping and texturing as you're working. Or if you stretch it out, sometimes you might be able to make it lay flat and then continue. It just depends on what you're making and what the project is going to be. That's the thing you need to remember. Like anything could happen. Like you could be doing increases, decreases, regular stitches, interchangeably left and right. All things are possible when you're making something like this. So, okay. So now let's do the decrease. So we're going to yarn over. We always start with a yarn over. Insert hook into the next stitch. Yarn over and bring up a loop. So yarn over, into the next stitch, yarn over, bring up a loop, bring it through 2, yarn over, enter the next stitch, bring up a loop, bring it through 2, and then bring it through 2. Okay. How are we doing? So we're almost finished. And then we enter the next one. So bring it through 2, and then bring it through 2. So yarn over. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. Yarn over. And then yarn over, enter the next one, and bring it through. And let's do some increases. And you just do those. Do 2 in the same stitch. And you can see it's creating all kinds of different shapes on my work. Okay, do we have any questions? We ready to see triple?
I think we can go ahead with that. Just to give you a time check, we're about halfway through class right now.
Okay. So remember, when you're doing a triple, you want to start with yarning over twice. So with a double and a half double, you yarn over once. With triple, you yarn over twice. So you insert your hook in the very next stitch. And then you finish your triple. And then I'm going to do yarn over twice, and I'm going to do another triple in that same stitch to do an increase. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. So how do we feel about a triple? Do we like doing the triples?
I feel like they're slightly too tall for my liking. I prefer a half double or a double.
I like a half double. I think a half double gives you a real nice fabric that's kind of flexible, but still pretty solid. Okay, so you can see, maybe you can see these a little bit easier though. Here are my 2 triple crochets. And if you trace them down, you can see they're going into the same stitch. So they're a little bit easier to kind of see what's happening. So like these 2 are going into that stitch. So one stitch grows into 2. I did the same thing here. So the increases are very easy. Okay, any questions about the increase? You can see it really does make an effect on how the work is going to look. Okay, so let's see if I can do the decrease without any trouble this time. Okay. So you start off always with a triple. You always yarn over twice. You insert the hook into the next stitch, yarn over and bring up a loop. There should be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, bring through 2. Yarn over, bring through 2. And if we were just doing a standard standard triple, we would yarn over and bring it through 2, and that would be the end of our stitch. But because we're going on to do a decrease, we stop here. This is the last step. We stop right before the last step, like Claire said. Yarn over twice. Insert it into the very next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yarn over and bring it through 2. Yarn over, bring it through 2. Yarn over and bring it through all. And that is a decrease. So yarn over twice. Enter the next stitch. Bring up a loop. Yarn over, bring it through 2, yarn over, bring it through 2, and then yarn over twice, enter the very next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, bring it through 2, bring it through 2, and then bring it through all. And that is the decrease. Any questions about that? So for a standard standard triple, you bring it through 2, bring it through 2, and bring it through 2. And for a decrease, bring it through 2, bring it through 2, and then we stop here. We don't finish the last step. Yarn over twice for our triple. Enter the next one. Bring it through 2. Bring it through 2, and then bring it through all. Looks like I split my yarn there, but it's just practice, so we'll keep going. Any questions about that? How are we doing? Have I thoroughly confused everybody, or is it making sense? Is there anything we want to see again?
No questions so far.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, then I do want to show you a little bit about different places you can enter the stitch. So if you look at the top of your work, what you're going to see are these kind of V shapes. It almost looks like a chain because they're kind of going in and out of each one, they kind of connected. So you're going to look for that chain, that kind of V shape or that chain. And then each one of these counts as a stitch. So when you're counting your stitches to make sure you haven't lost count, you count them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just count each one of those. And sometimes when you're reading a pattern, it will say single crochet or double crochet or whatever crochet you're working on through the front loop or through the back loop. Now, whichever loop is facing you is the front loop. So this is the front loop and this is the back loop. Okay, and then when you turn your work and you're working on the next side, the front loop's facing you and the back loop's facing away. So whichever one is facing you is the front loop. So I'm just going to do a half double. So if you're going to enter the stitch like normal, you would enter and go under both legs of that. You would go under both. But for just going on the front loop, you bring it up through the middle. And then you just do whatever stitch you want to do. Single, half double, double, triple, whatever you're doing. So yarn over. And you're just going under one strand of yarn right here. You're going through the middle, and then you're going to complete your stitch. So the only thing different is where we're entering the stitch. Instead of going under both, like that, you're coming up between them. Does that make sense? You guys able to see what I'm doing clearly? And I'll finish this row and then I'll show you what that looks like. Like, why would we want to do this? So just going up through. So what happens if you go through just the front loop? On the reverse side, you end up with this line right here, and that gives you a nice texture. And sometimes we do that and it creates ribbing. So if you turn it on its side, you get a texture that can look like ribbing. So you get that little edge. Now, sometimes it might say go through the back loop. So let me show you how to go through the back loop. So instead of coming up through the middle like we did here, we're going to go down through the middle and just under the back one. So go down right in there. And this one's a little more fun, I think, because you kind of see the texture as you're creating it. So if you look here, because I'm going through the back loop, it's giving me that same line, but on the side that I'm working on. So I can kind of see what's happening. Whereas when you go through the front loop, it's putting it on the other side. You just do a couple so we can see that texture. So you can see here where I went through the front loop, the back loop, it's putting the texture, that line right there on the same side that I'm working on. And when I went through the front loop, it put it on the back of my work, which is now the front because I've turned it. So any questions about going through the front loop or back loop? How do we feel about that? It's pretty easy.
I put it in the chat, but I'll say it in case anyone's not reading that. If your pattern does call for this, it's going to be abbreviated as FLO for front loop only, or BLO for back loop only. And then you'll have your type of stitch before that. So it'll be like SCBLO.
Okay, perfect. Any questions about that? And what that will do is it kind of gives you a raised edge, and you're going to be doing that on this cowl project. And it kind of gives you like a little raised edge right here, and it adds to the texture of it. So I'm not sure if you guys can kind of see right here, there's like a shadow there. That's giving it that raised edge, which gives it more of a texture and it makes it more interesting. So that's lots of different ways you can use that in a project, but for this project, that's how you'll be using it. And it looks really pretty. So, all right. Any other questions about anything we've covered so far? I'll be happy to cover anything again. So here, I made some samples. This is crochet in both loops. So this is the standard way. So you get that on one side and you get this on the other side. So it looks pretty much on both sides. This one is crochet in the front of the loop. So on the front side, this is the front of my work, it looks like this. And on the back of the work, you get this line. So that's on the back, on the other side that you're working on. And this one is crochet in the back of the loop. And that gives me this line on the front of my work. So depending on which side you're working on and where you want the texture will determine if you crochet in the front or the back of the loop. Any questions?
No questions so far.
All right, so here's something. This really, really messed me up and confused me when I was learning how to crochet. There are two ways of working on a row in crochet. And this is a standard edge. This is double crochet with a standard edge. And you see it's not a real straight edge. It kind of gives you that little kind of a fluted or a roughly edge. And what's sticking out is our chain. Like when we chain 2 to go up, that chain kind of gets pushed out a little bit. So that gives us kind of like not such a straight edge. And this is the standard way of doing crochet. This is what we've been practicing so far. And I'm going to show you a little bit how that, just a quick review on how that works. So we can contrast it to the new way. So if you look at the top of your work and you can see each stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What's going to happen is, let me do my chain. I'm going to do 1 stitch on top of each stitch. So I did my chain 2, and that doesn't count. We're not counting that as anything. And then the very first stitch, I'm going to do my double crochet. And then you work all the way across, 1 double crochet in each stitch, all the way across till you get to your last one that I have marked with the stitch marker. And then you do 1 double crochet in the last one, you do your chain 2, and then you continue. So this one is new. And this one, what you want to remember is these are 2 completely separate techniques. They're 2 separate techniques of but you're still doing the same thing, but you don't want to mix them up or combine them. So when I was learning this, people would say, it was always just very confusing for me. So I'm going to do my chain 2 to create my side. So I did my chain 2 for my for my double. And what's going to happen is I'm going to put a stitch marker in that chain because it's going to be very important that I can find that chain. So in the past, we've never thought about this chain. We did our chain 2 and then we moved on and we never thought about it again. Now we're going to have to be thinking about it. So we're going to chain 2 for our double crochet, and that counts as a stitch. Now that counts. So that's counting as a stitch. And so we don't go in this first stitch. We're going to skip the first one because we're counting that chain as our first one. So we're going to skip it, And then we're just going to go all the way across. And we're not losing a stitch because that chain is making up our next stitch that we feel like we may have lost. And all I'm doing is I'm just putting a double crochet on top of each double crochet as I'm going across as quickly as I can. Okay, I've put one on top of each stitch. And on this side, I put this the stitch marker in my chain, and that's helping me find it. So I'm going to put a stitch on top of that chain. Okay, so I yarn over, put a stitch on top of that chain, do my double, chain 2. Before I turn my work, I'm going to reposition my stitch marker because they are very handy in just such an occasion. Turn my work, and you can see that it doesn't kind of bow out like that because we're doing it in a different way. And so this is the straight edge method. It's more of a straight edge. And sometimes in a crochet pattern, people will ask, does the chain count as a stitch? Maybe it counts, maybe it doesn't count. There's no way to know. Well, there is. I mean, it's kind of what it seems like when you're learning, but the pattern will tell you chain 2, this counts as a stitch, or chain 2, this does not count as a stitch. And so if it counts as a stitch, then you know you're not going to chain in that first, you're not going to, put a stitch in that first stitch. You're going to skip it, but then you're going to put a stitch in your chain on the other side. Any questions about this? This was very confusing to me when I learned, but the thing you want to remember is 2 complete separate ways of doing it. Don't mix them, don't combine them. I was always trying to combine them and ended up with extra stitches and stuff. Any questions about that? But these stitch markers are going to really help guide you and help you figure out where your stitches go. No questions?
No questions on that. We do have a question to go back and show how to do a decrease again, the double crochet decrease.
Okay. So when you're doing a double, you always start with a yarn over. So you yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop. Yarn over, bring it through 2. Now, if I was going to finish this stitch, I would yarn over and bring it through 2, but I'm not. So you yarn over, enter the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, bring it through 2. Not going to bring it through 2, so yarn over, so there's the increase. Okay, and we want to review the pattern now, or what do we want to do next?
We've got a request to see the half double crochet decrease once more as well.
All right. So watch me close, Claire, on this one. So we're going to yarn over. I will always yarn over with half double. So yarn over, insert, bring up a loop. You've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, insert into the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and bring it through all. See, I feel like what I want to do is do a double here, but that's always my hesitation, because once I bring up my 3 loops, I want to bring it through those 2. But yarn over, go to the next one, and then bring it through all. So it's easy to mix them up. So you do want to take your time and practice each one.
I think the half double crochet is maybe extra tricky because you feel like it should have fewer loops since it's a smaller stitch, but you're actually, I think, ending up with the most loops on the hook to go through at once.
And when you end up with the 5 loops, it feels wrong. So to me, so yarn over, bring up a loop. I have 3, yarn over, bring up a loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That just doesn't seem right to me. So that's why this one kind of gets tricky. So just don't allow yourself to get kind of confused in the stitch like I did. Bring it through all. Because it's so similar to the double where you do that and then go to the next one. But the trick is you have to remember, and if you remember this trick, then, so I'm going to do my half double. I'm going to go through. So I yarn over to start, enter the stitch, bring up a loop. And so the next step to finish this would be yarn over and bring it through all. So what we do when we're doing our decreases is we work the stitch up to the last step, and we don't do the last step. So the last step is to yarn over and go through all. So we're not going to do it. We're going to yarn over for our next one and then go through, bring up a loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we yarn over and go through all. But it just seems really confusing to have, because it is a small stitch, why do we have 5 loops? So that's kind of what messes me up on that one. So any other questions?
I think we should probably move on to the pattern because we've got less than 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can find my pattern. Whoops. Okay. So this is a free crochet pattern, and you can print this from lionbrand.com, and it's just called the Crochet Level 3 Ripple Cowl. And the pattern will give you, it's kind of like a recipe. It gives you the list of everything you need. This pattern was made with Yellowstone. So it's Lion Brand Heartland yarn in Yellowstone and in Yosemite. And that's what this cowl was made out of. And I chose to use Sequoia and Dry to Tortoise. So you can pick whichever colors you like. And again, these are available on joanns.com or lionbrand.com. So the gauge, if you want to double check your gauge, you
You're going to
can.
hold that a little closer to the camera so we can read it.
If you want to double check your gauge, you can. But for this cowl, it's not going to be a big difference. But what that means is if your stitches are the same stitches as the designer stitches, then your cowl will be the same as the designer's cowl. If your stitches are bigger, then your cowl will be bigger. If it's smaller, then your cowl will be smaller. So just keep that in mind. That becomes much more important later on for other projects, okay? And so here is a stitch explanation. So that's what it looks like. I don't know if you guys can read this or not. For double crochet 2 together, and then half double crochet 2 together. So just a little bit of abbreviations there. But if you look at the bottom of the pattern over here, it gives us a list of abbreviations as well, like beginning, double crochet, repeat, and what this, what each one means. And that can be very helpful. It does give a few notes. The cowl is made from a rectangle worked in the ripple pattern, and then the short ends of the rectangle are sewn together to make the cowl. So you can read through these notes. Sometimes they're very important, sometimes they're not as important, but if you can go ahead and read through the notes. This is nice because it has a crochet chart, and crochet charts, there are, we could teach a class just on crochet charts, but what it means is it's basically a picture of a crocheted item, but just drawn out. And then the key is here. So this little oval is a chain. The T shape is a half double, and the T shape with a line on it is a double. So we've got a half double, a double, and then that little line is worked in the back of a loop. So each one of these is our chain, and then you can look and see, like right here, there's a decrease because 2 chains are becoming 1, and this is an increase because 1 chain is becoming 2. So it kind of helps you to visualize what is happening. And once you get good at reading these charts, this is all you need. You can just use this and make the ripple pattern and turn it into the cowl. And I know I have friends that buy Japanese crochet books, and they can't read Japanese, but they have these charts. And as long as you can read the chart, then you're good to go. So whenever you're following a pattern, if you're new at patterns, or if it's a new pattern and you're very kind of confused by it, I think it's nice to put Post-it notes to kind of block out what you're not looking at, so that way your eye goes right to the right place. And so we're just going to review a few lines of this. These are everything we reviewed in class today. Everything on here we have reviewed already today. So we're going to you chain 39, so that's easy enough. Double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook, 3 skipped, count as the first double crochet. Okay, so that's what we just covered. So we know we're going to be working in that chain, so you might want to put a stitch marker. And then you're going to double crochet in the next 3 chains. So just normal double crochet. Double crochet 2 together twice. We can see that or not. Double crochet 2 together twice. Anytime anything is in parentheses, it means it's going to be important, and usually it means something's going to be repeated. So you're going to double crochet 2 together, and then you're going to double crochet 2 together, and then you're going to double crochet in the next 3 chains just like normal. And there's an asterisk, and again, whenever there's an asterisk, you want to pay attention. Something important is going to happen. So you're going to do 2 double crochets in each of the next 2 chains. So that's easy. Double crochet in the next 3 chains. So that's easy. Double crochet 2 together twice. Double crochet in the next 3 chains. And then you're going to repeat from the asterisk. So you're going to go back just to the asterisk and then repeat that until the last chain. 2 double crochets in the last chain, and that's going to create 3 ripples. So it's important to keep a stitch marker on your chain, so then that way when you get to the end you can see exactly where you're going to be putting those 2 double crochets. For me, that's what I like to do. A stitch marker really helps. Any questions? I mean, that probably doesn't make any sense with me reading it out loud, but do you have any questions about what the abbreviations mean, or how they fit together, or how they work? Do you feel like if you broke it down step by step, you could follow that with what you've learned today. How do you feel about it? Any questions?
No questions so far. I know we've reached sort of the end of our hour, so if anybody has to go, I'll remind them that this class was recorded and it'll be posted on the Lion Brand YouTube channel in about 24 or 48 hours. So you can come back and watch it all again if you need to.
So that's pretty much the end of class. If you didn't have any questions about row 1, then it's the rest of the rows are just repeating the same types of stitches and the same types of instructions. You just want to make sure you're changing the colors as it's requesting. So you start with color A, number 2 is with color A, and then rows 3 and 4 are with color B. So you just change, as it's requesting you to. And then it's just going to have you repeat rows 3 and 4, 79, or here, rows 7 through 78, repeat rows 3 through 6 18 more times. So once you get in the groove of it, you'll be surprised. You'll end up memorizing it, and you'll end up being able to do this really easily. So if there are no other questions, then it's pretty much the end of class. Sorry, I had a little confusing mix-up there for a minute about the half double, but if you do have questions going forward, feel free to contact me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Mr. Woolly Bear, as it's on the screen. Or if you want to find me on Facebook, it's just my name spelled out. And just send me a direct message, and I'll do my best. I usually can answer them pretty quick. So if you run into any questions or have any confusion, just let me know, and I'll be glad to help. So don't forget to practice. Have a good day.